Evening. I now have 7 p.m. on Wednesday, April 6th. We're at the Orion Township Municipal Complex Boardroom at 2323 Joslyn Road, Lake Orion, Michigan, 48360. Can I have a roll call, please?
Reynolds?
Here.
Gross?
Here.
St. Henry?
Here.
Urbanowski, absent with notice. Walker, absent with notice. Bracken?
Here.
Gingell?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We do have a public hearing scheduled this evening, and I'll go over those public hearing process rules here in just a minute. Before that, I would like to go through our agenda, essentially our minutes and our agenda approval before we get to that. So with that said, let's go to item number 3, which is our meeting minutes from March 16th, both our regular meeting and our public hearing for the Grand Square of Orion, which is PC case 2022-09. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes for March 16th, 2022 for the 2 meetings as submitted.
Motion by Mr. Gross. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mrs. Gingell. Further discussion? Seeing none, any public discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please state with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. That leads us to our agenda review and approval this evening. We have had a written request from PC case 2022-11 CSB Investment LLC to be removed from our agenda this evening, which includes the second public hearing, which is scheduled right after 2022-10 for the River Church, to be removed from our agenda. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Moved by Mr. St. Henry, supported by?
Support.
Support by Mr. Gross. Further discussion? Seeing none, any public discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please stay with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. That leads us to brief public comment on non-agenda items only. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make any comments on non-agenda items? Seeing none, I do have one. I would like to acknowledge Miss Jessica Gingell for being a now citizen planner. So that is a course that we take through Michigan State University Extension Program. So we commend her on her time and efforts. That's not a easy certification to go through. So congratulations, and thanks for putting in the time and the effort for your community and the Planning Commission. So thank you. We have no consent agenda, and at this point in time, we have no new business. So, with that said, I will go over the public hearing process rules. We have a public hearing here tonight at 7:05 for PC case 2022-10, the River Church, which is a special land use request for a church located at 3900 South Baldwin Road, parcel 0929301-029. 3910 South Baldwin Road, which is parcel number 0929301-034, and 3920 South Baldwin Road, which is parcel 0929301-038. With that said, when we get to that time, 7:05, we will essentially pause our regular meeting and we will open the public hearing. The public hearing process gives the applicant a brief opportunity to make a presentation. In this case, the River Church has been a church in the past. This will not be further deliberated on our agenda this evening due to some site plan issues. The PC case has been removed, but since we've been advertised for the public hearing, that will occur this evening, and deliberation on further in the case will occur at a later agenda, at a later date. With that said, I will ask the petitioner to make a brief presentation. I'll provide citizens the opportunity, 3 minutes apiece, to make a trip up to the podium and 1 trip only. If we have any citizen letters, we'll read those into the record, and then we'll turn it over to my fellow planning commissioners and myself for an opportunity to provide questions and comments. And then there'll be an opportunity for the petitioner to essentially respond to those questions. And then at that point, we'll close the public hearing and reconvene our regular meeting. So, with that said, all this talking still hasn't led us to 7:05. Tammy, if you'd like to add something to bring us there.
Mr. Chair, yeah, sure, I can. I put in front of you a plan that we have that shows the church as it exists today. so that this was not part of their application. Their application had a site plan that, as Mr. Chair mentioned, is going to have to be modified, so it couldn't be shown to you. So it's a plan to show you the existing church as it is for a church that's been a church for 50 years that we advertise for the special land use. But as you know, a special land use has to have a site plan attached. This site plan would not be, or assumed will not be attached. We'll find out depending on what site plan they end up with. The applicant is here. I don't know that he has a lot more to say. It's a church that's been a church for 50 years.
Okay, thank you for the overview. With that said, you took us to 7:05, so I'd like to open the public hearing for PC case 2022-10, the River Church, for a special land use request for a church at the previously mentioned addresses. If the applicant is here and would like to introduce themselves and make just a brief presentation, if you'd like to come up to the podium, please state your name and address for the record, please. Will you do me a favor, and there's a little vertical gray button. Is that green light on there?
Now, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Alan Hall, and I'm the architect for the River Church. And the church has been there under the Gingerville Community Church, for over 70 years. And so they are enjoying serving with the community, and we're open for questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you very much. With that said, I'd like to turn it over to citizens if they would like to make any comments or questions in relationship to the special land use request. All right, with that said, any of my fellow planning commissioners would like to make comments or questions on the request during the public hearing portion? Okay. Final call on public hearing? Okay. And I don't believe we have any citizen letters, correct, Tammy? Okay. Since there wasn't much for comment and questions, we will close the public hearing at 7:07. And we'll reconvene our regular meeting. As I mentioned previously, this will, the actual request for the church and further site plan review will occur as a future agenda item. If you would like to know when that appears, you can contact the Planning and Zoning Department, and they will keep you in the loop if you want to provide an email or a phone number, and they will give you a ring when it is going to appear. With that said, reconvening our regular meeting, we have our first item, 8A, which is PC case 2021-90, request for an extension of the 3 months to submit revised site plans for PC case 2021-90, Ridgewood PUD concept, 625 West Clarkston Road, Sidwell 0915-226-007, vacant parcel west of 625 West Clarkston Road, Sidwell 0915-226-006, and vacant parcel east of 625 West Clarkston Road, Sidwell 0915-226-008. If the applicant is here and would like to step up to the podium and give us a little background on the request, and if you could, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Daniel Johnson, representing the Ridgewood PUD project. As you recall, we were here on your agenda the first meeting in January of this year. After discussion with the Township Planning and Zoning Director, early in March, we submitted a letter requesting an extension for our resubmittal. I believe that letter is in your packet. So we've made some changes we're in progress with making some changes to the project and to address some of the input that we received at our prior meeting. Our engineers are busy and need a little more time to put together the supporting engineering for that submittal. And that's really the reason for our request. I can share a little more information about the project if you wish, but that's really what we're here for.
And just to be clear, your request of an extension is for what length of period?
I believe we put in the letter 3 months.
Okay. All right, so the applicant essentially we provided the applicant the opportunity to resubmit within 90 days, and they're asking for an additional 90 days. Is there discussion, questions for the applicant? I foresee no major issue with this, additional 90 days. I guess from my experience there's a lot of work out there, and obviously, a short period of time seems reasonable to me to still be able to resubmit. So with that said, if someone's willing to make a motion, I'll entertain one.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. St. Henry.
I mean, do we think that 90 days is enough? Should we extend it beyond that just to avoid that applicant to have to come back in?
I guess I'm indifferent on it. It's not a approved site plan, we're talking about PUD concept and eligibility. So instead of, I believe this, we had this as a tabled topic previously, so I think we want to keep it a tighter time frame because it's it's an active submission, not a approved project that if that makes any difference to the thought.
Okay.
Since it's tabled, I guess. Further questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission approve the PUD concept and eligibility revised plans extension request for PC 2021-90, which is the Ridgeway PUD concept and eligibility plan for 90 days, which would take us to roughly July 5th of 2022, based upon the request of the applicant requesting the extension.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Bracken. Further discussion? Any public discussion on the motion? Seeing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Bracken,
Yes.
St. Henry,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you for consideration, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We will see you back here soon. That leads us to our second unfinished business case, which is PC 2021-07, 5-year master plan update. Just a little bit of background on this. We had read our resolution previously and forwarded on to the Board of Trustees. At that point in time, the Board of Trustees requested some additional time to review the current draft of the master plan, knowing that we are headed into our review period. In our packet tonight, we have the comments from the Board of Trustees. I reworked some of those comments to be in a chronological kind of page-by-page order and looked at it from general review comments through page by page. I personally color-coded some of the stuff to prompt maybe certain items that would be a discussion, others that I think are things for our professional consultant to consider and review. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Giffords if you have some thoughts or response on some of the comments, before we go too far in depth or get some additional discussion going.
Absolutely. So I have only had a few days to review these, and I know Rod he's been out, so he hasn't even seen any of these comments. I took a look at them, though. As far as, I guess I'll start with the easy ones, the photo and image quality. I think that was just an issue of how the document was transported or transmitted, because I think the file size maybe had something to do with it. It was a large file and might have been scanned, but the print version, if you will, is very high quality. So I don't anticipate that being an issue as far as map readability or image quality. As far as some of the images that were requested to be replaced, I know there was a few. The one that comes to mind was the Phragmites picture, or picture that was underneath the invasive species part that talked about Phragmites, and it wasn't a picture of Phragmites, so there were several comments about that. Those types of things, no problem, switch those out. So the photo changes, I'm fairly confident are already all taken care of. I was just talking with Tammy about the historic pages. We're going to get that all figured out on where exactly that was located and that type of thing. I'm not going to go over all of the grammatical typo type comments. The one thing I will say, though, is we received several comments about some maybe misunderstanding about how and when to capitalize township and not. So we're going to put an introductory section at the beginning of the document that explains why township is sometimes capitalized and sometimes it's not capitalized based on the APA style of formatting, which is what we use for all of our documents. So there were some comments to correct some that were actually correct based on our formatting that we use, which, as I said, is the APA formatting. So we're going to clarify, so that should be clarified right away. So I think that should address a lot of the capitalization issues. Yeah, I guess as I said, I didn't have a chance to review them very thoroughly. I would open it up and say, is there anything specifically you'd like me to take back and address?
Understood. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think, it's always great to have many eyes on the document. So I think, as I reviewed all of the comments here, I think there's some of them to just kind of verify or acknowledge. My personal opinion is to have you guys review these and kind of entrust whether it's an appropriate for a master plan or not to elaborate or modify. I do think there's some of the, yes, grammatical things that we need to address as this is a draft, but I think, the other thing is some of our facts, might be useful.
Yeah.
Just to make sure we are documenting the accurate things. So I think that was where my effort here tonight of this Technicolor document that I gave everyone was just to kind of isolate maybe some of these comments to,
Yeah.
to you guys as the experts and us as just acknowledging that we reviewed them. I would ask also that we consider maybe tapping into some of our resources of local photography that we had too. I think that
Yeah.
I personally didn't think there was major issues with some of the photography, but there's clearly some opinions out there that we have maybe better or good, well-documented items. So I think it's worthwhile connecting the dots, right, and
Yeah,
considering that.
absolutely, yep.
Yep. I did have a couple of questions as people kind of thumb through the list. So in page 59, for example, here, item number 1 under natural feature inventory, we talk about the corridor open space preservation district will also assist in this effort. Is that something we have now? Is that a map or?
That is an excellent question. I noted to do some research on that today as
Okay.
I was going through. If I recall, it may have been a carryover from the natural features inventory that was conducted in the early 2000s on a countywide effort.
Okay.
But, yeah, I saw that was color-coded differently, so.
Okay,
absolutely.
sounds good.
Yeah.
So I was going to go to page 81 here, 81 and 83, talking about some of our vision items was one of them that I thought was worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's validating or discussing here as a commission. So the vision, right, so the vision that we had discussed, right, how was it created? I believe this was something that we worked with very early on with you guys, correct? So it's just mainly kind of validation that we had talked about some verbiage. So I think that's some of this effort when we're publishing this document is people don't understand that we kind of worked with Giffords to draft and come up with this statement. So I think throughout there's some comments about appendix and photo credits and things. Maybe this is one of those areas that we just have acknowledgement of the author between the planning commission ourselves and Giffords Webster in that period. So
This was really an expansion of the 2015 vision.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily new, but
Right.
it's an expansion.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Yeah, okay.
Rod, do you know, not Rod. Sorry, I'm used to Rod.
No worries.
Matt Rod, Giffords.
Same thing.
Do you know, was Gary Roberts at all involved? And I thought, because he was pushing for it to be within the master plan related to redevelopment ready, so we should look to see if he had, before we give
Yes.
credits, if he had any say in this.
I know specifically off
reached
the
out
top
to-
of my head, we worked with him on the redevelopment sites, and I believe he helped us identify those and come up with some of the concepts that were discussed on,
I thought he had put some added to the vision, I thought.
oh, yeah,
thought
I can,
so.
yeah, I can look into that. That's not,
Okay.
yep.
We should double check.
Go ahead, Mr. Henry.
So in regard to the vision, so there, I don't see, the only question and comment here is where and how was this vision created? Without any comment on they agree or disagree or they have any thought. I will just say that I do wish we would have, I brought this up more than once, that I I would have preferred to have had some feedback and thought from the Board of Trustees on their thoughts on the vision in this section up front. That being said, if whoever made this comment or anybody else on the board that has any specific thoughts about the vision, this is the time where we can continue to adjust it. And as long as we all agree in general terms that we like the updated vision, or if that's what it comes down to, let's make changes.
Yep.
I mean, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, I think, agreed. I don't have an issue with it. Obviously, it would be the comments further grounded in if there are issues with it. I think some of the comments that I'm getting out of this are, is it actually truthfully our facts, right? And we had a lot of discussion here at the Planning Commission in regards to that, and is it a generic approach, or is it something unique to us? And I think, we can answer yes to a lot of those questions. Yes, there's some things that, could further be personalized, but we've done a pretty extensive overhaul to this master plan. So I think there's a balance between kind of the general big picture of what the master plan is achieving and then the specific goals or modifications that's going to be a product of this master plan too. So, I think that's approaching this with the right lens, versus just handing this packet out and not understanding what this document achieves, where we've been talking about this for months and months and months.
I don't mean to make this process any more complicated, but I'm wondering, now that the Board of Trustees had a chance to review it, we obviously created it, at least the first cut or two. I'm wondering, there are some issues here that are up for discussion. Does it make, and it's hard to go back and forth because you don't really understand where people are coming from.
Right.
Okay, I wonder if it makes any sense to have a work group to go through this together where we can hash out some of these issues and provide the planner and his team with clear direction on where we want this to go out of a 1 hour, 2 hour work group meeting. That's just a thought, but I think that would streamline the process of it, clear up any misunderstanding.
So my personal opinion is at this point in this juncture would be is to encourage that interaction to kind of happen at that open house, our future events, right, is to get those people there and say, what do you think of this? What is it missing? And get that comment from the board and also our public, because we've hashed out some of these things a lot, right? And I think we do want those opinions, but I think in the same regard, let's have it be kind of collaborative dialogue, because I don't want to take steps so far back to say, let's reinvent the wheel, here.
Well, I'm not recommending that at all. I'm just saying that I don't think that if we waited to the open house where the public had a chance to review the document and the main themes and some of the details, at that point, the public would expect the Board of Trustees and our group to be on the same page.
Right.
On any outstanding issues, and that would be reflected in the document. I personally don't think that's taking a step back. I think that's a matter of just hashing out some significant issues, if there are any. I mean, again, I've skimmed this, but, I don't think, I think at some point we need to come together and say this is a joint document between the two bodies.
Yep. Understood. So,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to add one thing really quick, just before, as far as the vision statement, I know we got comments from all board members, and we just had one comment from one board member asking where it came from. So before we get too far, I didn't think there was, from my review of this, a ton of policy disagreements. It was a lot more formatting and typos and the way things looked. So I just wanted to say that there wasn't a large disagreement on the vision. It was one inquiry, just where it came from.
Yeah,
That was all, yep.
and I totally recognize that. I was just curious if we had any additional feedback anywhere on, okay, if you, because that comment makes it sound like, where did this come from? Do you have any other thoughts? Not you, or not us, or you're like the person that made that comment, or what are their concerns, if any?
I have nothing to add to it. I mean, I have what that comment was. You could also read it to be, where did it come from, as in credits, like we already talked about. So, I would think if they didn't elaborate, they were wondering, and if it was acknowledged that the planning commission was involved in it and discussed it, then it's what the planning commission came up with.
That's how I took a lot of these, you know, is not understanding where some of this is rooted in, you know, in the purpose of the document. There's some of it where it's like, yes, it is going to be broader scope, it is going to be a bigger picture, because you don't want it to be narrow-minded, it's the big vision, you know, so, but we can absolutely make sure we prompt those dialogues, you know. I didn't take that as everyone disagreed with it.
No, I did not either. I was just curious if somebody's gonna call out, how was this created? Who has created it? Okay, do you like it? Or if you have concerns with it, what are the concerns? That's all.
Yep.
Let us know. We can still make changes.
Agreed. Go ahead.
Just as a side, I'd like to compliment the Board of Trustees for actually going through the document page by page. They did a
Very, very thorough.
very thorough, you know, down to the alphabet and the letters and everything else. I thought, I appreciate the fact that they spent that amount of time going over the document, so, and appreciate their comments.
A couple of sections that I just called out you know, and this is, again, the gray area, my personal opinion of, like, page 125, talking about future road improvements. You know, I think the point is there is a lot of investment that's occurring here. Do we speak to anything more, or at least allude to, this is a couple examples? You know, I think that's worthwhile being kind of visionary of forward thinking.
Yeah,
So-
so actually, that page I noticed the table got cut off, so we noticed.
Okay.
Those were specifically noting the projects from the regional RTP. So it may not encompass some of the local projects, but I'll go through and double check that and note that as a confirmation, but I believe those were, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's worthwhile pointing out again, if it isn't the only road projects, right? But in the regional priority of road projects, we happen to have this handful, right? And that I think says something versus, you know, is one of the dirt roads gonna get regraded next week? Yes, you know, we kind of know that. So I think, again, where are we looking at this and what's the overall goal?
So from that comment, would you say that Matt needs to look into it further, or does the
I-
planning commission feel it's broad but limited enough that it's what you want it to reflect?
My opinion of reviewing that is just acknowledge, now that you explain that, just acknowledge that we have three out of many of the regional priority projects, right? And I think that, to me, addresses that of our approach. We're not trying to have every call out of every project, but rather, as a county, we have a lot going on here in our area code. Agree, disagree, thoughts?
Yeah, it's important for our capital improvement program to know
Right.
when things are going to be happening in kind of a span of,
Yeah. And that it might not represent every, capital improvement project in the township, so. My other one is just being a little more forward-thinking. Page 134 is when we talk about general office, it provides some examples of retail. And small, right, but valid, I think, in the sense of we know some of our definitions are a little outdated as it relates to general business and restricted business. So I think it's a good catch to say what else, whether we keep all of these or not, do we really have a whole lot of taxidermists these days? No. Do we see, type 2, eyebrow places? Yes, we're seeing that. So I think just, I don't know, your expertise of if there's any other kind of buzzwords that elude us towards what else GB or those retail could include.
high-tech type.
Yep. So, any other sections or areas? Again, these are all the comments, and I'm not just trying to guide us to what I thought we needed to talk about, but any other areas you wanted to make sure we speak to? Go ahead.
It seems as if throughout many of the comments by different people that they want a push to include more information about General Motors or promotion of General Motors. I don't know if that's correct or not correct, if that's limiting or non-limiting, but it seems as if a discussion certainly between us and the board has to take place, or we need to figure that out, because it was clearly a push by them that we didn't seem to have.
Keep in mind, our draft, right, occurred well before the announcement that GM made, right? So I think that's the struggle, is it's been a big buzz. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, the market study was conducted by, an outside sub-consultant of ours in 2020, so it's hard to continually update it as things change and go back to them. So that's why it was sort of a snapshot in time. Just like you had mentioned.
So my opinion of it is by all means, let's go ahead and still speak to them, and even you can add a sentence to it to speak to, a major investment, right? But I think it tends to be our big buzz right now, and I don't want it to be the only buzz that gets echoed through this whole document. Yes, we know it's gonna have huge ripple effects on our township, but it's not the only investment that's happening either. So I think that's where critically, from our perspective, we need to kind of balance that out and say, yes, that's one major influence. Is it the only one? No. So that's my opinion, is let's feel free to kind of weave it in a little bit stronger, but, we already talk about the Orion plant being a major employer, right? So we can talk about how it's going to continue to be and, could significantly become the most significant employer with the recent investment of, $4.5 billion.
Or reference the electric
Vehicles and all
I mean,
that.
that's, yeah, this is how I think you should word this. It's General Motors and the emerging EV industrial complex, or something to that effect, because it's GM, yes, that's where they're going to be assembling the electric vehicles, but there's going to be quite a few suppliers all pumping in the area, just-in-time delivery of parts right in there, and they're all going to be within the 20 miles of that building. So,
Good point.
so that's, I would expand that beyond just, to Derek's point, expand that in writing so it's very clear.
Additional discussion points from board comments?
That could trigger, I'm just thinking out loud, I mean, that could trigger some additional high-tech manufacturing in this area as well, I mean, beyond vehicles.
Well, there's a lot of spin-off industries that
Oh,
can
yeah,
occur,
I mean,
right?
it's, yeah, obviously, we don't know for sure, but it's much more than just GM.
GM hopes with 4.5 billion that something happens with it. Additional areas to kind of speak to.
There was conversations about the population forecast and so forth in this document. In earlier meetings, we had some strong, nice discussion, constructive discussions about that. I would just say that, obviously a lot can happen. We don't know over the next 10 years. But if the planner wants to include the SEMCOG figures, or wants to include figures from someplace else, or whatever, let's just make sure that it is very clear where those numbers came from. And if there's any possible ambiguity with the rationale behind those numbers, add that rationale to the document. If your team believes in the SEMCOG numbers and SEMCOG provides an explanation of why they think that, let's make sure we include that information. A couple sentences, maybe all it takes.
Well put, and I think that kind of applies to some of my other areas of GIFLs to kind of fact check or go back through is, if it's appropriate or the level of information we're providing is appropriate for the tasks that we have in front of us, I think either hold to it, or you can see where some of the comments might arise from. So whether it's a credit or a fact check, just to make sure we are accurate, doesn't hurt to make sure we're all on the same page.
Or at least cite where that came from, that's all.
Yep. Sorry. All right, any other comments? Do you have anything else in your markups? Nope? Okay.
Scott?
Yes, go ahead.
Just considering that we've got in front of us, you touched on, I just want to make sure that we've got guidance on what appears to be the blue, which are the topic.
Yep.
The one that, you know, I've looked through this briefly and agree what you have in blue that needed to be researched. So the planner said he'd look at the corridor open space. The page 83, page 103, we talked about General Motors, but then it goes on to natural and historic resources seem generic and not really designed. So I didn't know if you want to go further into that to give more directive to, is there a decision, we don't care, or directive for the planner, or we kind of skimmed over that, and again, because it's in blue, I just wanted to home in a little bit.
You're saying page 83, so let's go back over that here real quick.
I think it's really page 84.
Okay.
I was
sorry.
looking at your blue, just going strictly to your blue.
It was perfect. I was merging all these comments, so it was a little more organized than four random comments, so. So,
I think it's really more directed to page 84 with economic development. Or there's,
there was 83, it was speaking to natural and historic resources. So I believe that would be 83, specifically 1, 4, 6, 7, and 8. So my personal opinion is protect and enhance township woodlands, wetlands, you know, water features, those are all good comments. I think, again, my thought here in the discussion is do we agree, and is it a bad thing that they are kind of big picture? And I think that's maybe where you can provide a little feedback, Matt, in this effort of objectives should be bigger picture, not specific, or should be honing in on specific things in Orion Township. What's typically the approach?
In this case, they would start to address the, you know, highlight the big picture items that are important. I mean, like, obviously, I was a part of drafting them, so if you, I guess I would be more curious if you disagree with the objective, and we can change that, but as far as just wordsmithing for the sake of making it more unique, I don't know, I don't have any suggestions on that at this point. So if there's any, if there's anything you disagree with or suggestions, I'm happy to hear that, but,
Yeah, so without
Yeah,
reading
they'll be a
all of them
little generic.
verbatim, right? I mean, 4 is promote and communicate sustainability concepts and incentivize residents and businesses to implement relevant strategies. My opinion is, you know, this is one of those things where it's kind of honing in on where we want to go with a goal, and then we have specific strategies later on, right? So these are goals.
so the idea is that then the action items are tied to these objectives, and there's a specific relevant strategy that would say implement, maybe it's a solar panel on residential roofs, and there's a program for that. That would be a relevant strategy. So that would go into the action item section.
Yeah, so
as opposed to
provide
the objective
resources and
section.
guidelines for development and application of solar, wind, and other alternative energies, right? I mean, I think that speaks to it. It's a big picture idea. You know, I don't know how else we would narrow that down and without going so specific. I think this is the big picture vision.
Objectives are big picture.
Yeah.
Strategies, action items
Yeah.
all relate to individual objectives and are measurable.
Agreed.
So no change.
So I
Planning
didn't
Commission's
have
good.
any opinion, I didn't disagree with any of these items, and I didn't think, you know, if we narrowed them in a little bit more to the township, great, but I didn't disagree with any of them, so. Agreed?
agreed?
That's, okay. All right, with that said, any other comments to add? You're good?
Again, on that same page, page 105, it's
Okay.
talking about update with GM, unless these are the same, that is known strategy 4, 3, 4, seem a little odd, not sure where they came from. Again, you had it in blue.
So that was in reference to, I believe, like electric scooters and electric bikes. Yes, I mean, I guess for me, it's more or less like the authorship or why are we speaking to it, and I think bigger picture, I'm not gonna disagree with it. You know, it's electric something. You know, I think I don't think we can predict everything that may head our way. Electric, yeah, so We are talking in strategy 4, seek growth of industries that utilize the labor force's skills. The question was on strategy 4, 3 and 4 seem a little odd. Where did they come from? Electric bike producers and assemblers, electric scooter manufacturers. You know, so I think the big one there is whether we say electric bikes or scooters, it's alternative, you know, transportation, you know.
Additional electrification of transportation
Right.
modes.
Electrification a word?
Whatever I just said? Yeah, that's a word.
It is now.
Electrification? Yeah.
Right, so I understand the strategy, right? I mean, whether it's scooters or bigger picture, I think that's fine.
That goes to my point that like, okay, as EV, electric vehicles take off, there's gonna be offshoot industries. And we may have the talent and the resources and the suppliers and all that right here. Could be scooters, it could be whatever. I don't necessarily know if we call them out by name in this document, but just refer to the fact that there may be other opportunities in the EV world.
Right.
That we could take advantage of.
My opinion is I didn't think it needed to be changed. I was good with how it was presented, so. Agreed, disagree?
I don't see a problem with it.
All right. Any other areas you want to make sure we go over, Tammy, here, that I think we,
The only thing I would say is that if everyone has taken the time to review it and agree with your colors, because we've kind of gone that direction, which is wonderful, thank you for preparing this. I wouldn't want to
my free time.
not acknowledge something that should be blue, that should be discussed. Again, I don't know if all of these comments were in the packet, so whether they were color-coded or not, everyone had them. And if no one came with any other comments that they felt that these comments led to necessary discussion by planning commission to consciously decide to change, or, again, yes, the biggest were, you know, talking about cosmetics and typos, which the planner can go back and I can work with him on photos and availability of that and not involve the planning commission. If the planning commission wants to say you would like us to look into that, just want to make sure that there's not something that should further be discussed. That would be the only.
Okay.
And I don't know if anybody wants a couple extra minutes to read it or if everyone's comfortable they read it ahead of time.
Thoughts on that question, or additional time to review the lists, or are we comfortable with how I was proposing it as things in green and yellow would be subjected to our staff and Giffords-Webster to essentially correct, consider for revision?
I would say have the planner go through and make these changes. There's quite a few of them. It's going to take a while. Maybe some additional research is needed to clarify some things. And if the planner feels comfortable with that, with the document, and that it really hasn't changed the intent of sections or whatever as they're going through it, then we're in good shape. But if there's any concern that, you know, we need to bounce this off the planning commission because the edits significantly changed the purpose and content, you know, then maybe we look at specific sections, just like we're doing today, but you just call them out. But there's plenty of updates here. You know, it'll take a while, and we want to do a thorough job.
I don't want to speak on everyone's behalf, but that was my effort of going through it, was I didn't think the other areas were dramatic in the sense that they would drastically change a section. I tried to single out those sections that would change. A lot of them were grammatic, or hey, don't do, you know, a fact check question, or hey, can we approve a photo? So a lot of them were in general support from my perspective again. So just putting that out there.
It would be nice if we could have somebody, I know it's a big document, I know it's detailed and so forth. If after Giffords goes through and makes the changes, and if somebody could just give it a fresh eye, because we all get so close to this thing. A fresh eye would be great. And then we know that's the best product that we've put out there for when it comes to outside agencies reviewing it and the public reviewing it.
I will say that we've gotten a lot of eyes on this, more so than I've had in other experiences of master plans. So like this document, for me, represented, because I was like, wow, I didn't catch that originally. So it was nice for the board to go through it, so.
I mean, perhaps in the past, we should have been this, spent this type of time. Can't go back, we can only go forward. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this, and the Board of Trustees is looking at it closely. I mean, this is an important document, and nobody can say that we didn't put a lot of time and effort into it, all of us.
Well, and that's kind of why I'm stressing, has everyone looked over? Because I would hate to go back and have the Board of Trustees say, did they even read what I said? So that was the only reason I was
Well-
kind of saying that. But if, again, everyone knows if they read it and they said, I feel it's cosmetic, I feel it's typo orientated, there's really nothing more for the planning commission to discuss, then your motion is the resolution and you're sending it back. But if there's something that you read that you feel really is not at the discretion of the planner and you feel the planning commission should discuss, now's the time to speak or forever hold your peace because they put it in a comment.
Well, I mean, I think we should have the opportunity perhaps to review it again before it goes to the board, just so the board doesn't say, didn't you guys take our opinions into consideration?
So I think, so I don't want to say, I don't want to see it again, right? But I also want to acknowledge that we're going into the review period, right? So if someone here isn't comfortable with obviously the review or the comments as they were submitted in our packet, by all means. But I would like to kind of push this towards the review period because we still have the opportunity to wordsmith and to say, wow, we really overlooked that, right? I think the effort of the board taking the time that they did is that we have done an overhaul. They're acknowledging the overhaul. And then, there's some items that, again, I felt that we're kind of wordsmithing, fact-checked in green, as I provided here tonight, that it wasn't like someone strongly disagreed with our approach on PUDs or the zoning map itself or woodland stream. So I would encourage us to say, let's move towards the next step. If we're comfortable with the discussions we had here tonight, if we want to have a pause period to kind of flip through these comments one more time, because I don't want to keep going, it sat at the board for pretty much a month and a half, so we're dragging this out. So I want everyone to feel comfortable, but at the same time, we're going into that official review period too, and we're going to have that opportunity to once again have thoughts.
I guess I would just say that if somebody on the board came back and said, you didn't pay attention to my comments or edits, or maybe they have additional thoughts, whatever, that's when we all sit down and hash it out. I mean, I don't have a problem with the timing. I mean, if somebody on the board says, you ignored my thoughts and it's significant, how are we going to come to an agreement on it one way or the other if we don't sit down and hash it out?
But if you've acknowledged their comment and you said, we feel, like we did on the blue, we feel no change is appropriate. You've looked at it, that was the planning commission's unanimous decision that it wasn't. Versus, and again, I'm not knocking you, Scott, if Scott put something as green and we're not looking at it, because in Scott's opinion, it was a fact check, and it truly isn't a fact check, then that comment, it's not that you need to get together and have a discussion, it's that you didn't discuss it. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying, I know they took the time to do this, we pushed it, they did it. Are we moving? And I agree with the chair that postponing it and forwarding is not appropriate. To say adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes for everybody to read real quick to make sure there's nothing further would allow us to seal the deal tonight, I would think. But if everyone feels that they've studied it prior to the meeting and they're comfortable with these comments and they feel the ones that were in blue were the only ones that needed to be discussed, then fine. And you all, if you say that, that's what it is. I just wanted to make sure.
I mean, I just think there are some issues that they seem to be important about pictures or diagrams or those kinds of things that, but are not the quality of them, but it seems like they're gonna want more, they wanted more local. And I don't know if necessarily that's the planner's responsibility to go out and take the photos or gather the photos?
We have
that
them.
they
The
want?
two of us we've heard the board. If the planning commission's not opposed to it, I will work with the planner, open up to them our big library of pictures electronically, and allow them to pick some more local, unless the planning commission says, no, I want the ones that are there.
Yeah, I think there's a number that are the local economy. I think we can find a picture of a local business to, it was maybe just we didn't give it that, we weren't thinking about it in that lens. We put it together, we went around, took a bunch of pictures, made them cover pages, and, so I don't think that that's an issue to put a more specific picture in a section to add a little caption and say, hey, this is a new business that opened up, or, yeah, that's not. Those are easy enough to address. I meant more the ones like I think there was a comment that it was a terrible picture of the American flag, and it was a high resolution quality, high quality, high resolution. And I think that it might have been a scanned page of a faded, a faded image that looked terrible in that context, but seen in a high quality document, it's a good picture. So that we can say we've reviewed the photos, and there are some maps we're going to change too. I've already had like the regional locator map. It's really hard to read, so, yeah.
Yeah, so we know there's going to be some tweaks, and to me, as I read through all these comments, nothing took us so far off the rails that it wasn't what we had discussed or are representing as a planning commission.
Yeah, I would say there was nothing that was like, why are we doing 15-minute neighborhoods? What's up with this new housing type? Or it was nothing like policy related that's going to cause, why are you allowing so much density? Didn't get a single comment about the future land use map or changes. And so that was, I think those are the really meaty, important parts they're going to see
We had a lot of comments on where did this come from or why are we including it? And to me, that was my effort to say, let's empower our professionals in which are aiding us in this process to say, agreed it should be kind of refined a little bit or not, not relevant to what the goal of this document is. We've spent a lot of time on this and I feel confident in where we're at. And I don't think the comments that we got from the board derail that is my opinion. We've spent a lot of time on it in a very good way, and I think it's awesome that we're looking at it this detail, but I want to encourage us to go to the next step to say, what if we get, now that this gets in the hands of some adjacent communities, tonight, our next item is Independence starting this topic, the village on their, there might be some really good points that swing any of our perspectives even tonight in a different way, in a better way, right? Just by including additional information or understanding what other people's strategy or vision is that we're not going to get until we push it to that next phase.
As the son of an English teacher, I just feel like my paper got turned back to me with a bunch of red slashes on it, and I don't want to turn it back into the teacher with mistakes that haven't been corrected yet.
But you also have review, right? I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to discourage any of the comments that we were provided, right? But we've been very enthralled in this process for multiple months, right? And then you have someone coming in and saying, why don't we have this and this and this? I think there's a lot of items that are being encouraged to be added to this document that are decent things to consider, but I don't know are necessarily appropriate to say we got to go talk about lakes and all these other topics for 4 more pages, right? The point is context, future land use map, strategies, right? I mean, there's a lot of master plans out there that are much fewer pages, and I'm not trying to say that a C+ answer is fine, C's get degrees. It's saying in the sense that I think we have a lot of really good information here, and I don't think we should question that necessarily just because of these comments of, page flips. Now, I think a lot are very valid, but they don't swing the course that we're on right now, in my opinion, my professional opinion.
So would you think it's a good statement to say that if we end up with a resolution, forwarding it again to the board, that prior to it going to the board, the typos would be corrected? We would look at the photos and which ones they are, look at if the quality of the photo is just because it's been copied 1,000 times. Fact checks are done, and basically the planner will be going through everything but the blue that we already talked about. And we would then have notes again, I agree, the 63-day review, there's probably going to be something else after the open house that we might make changes. So we make note if there's anything that the planner feels he should come back and discuss with us, and we could amend it at that point in time. But what we have, once the typos are fixed, is ready for the board to release.
It's more than just, I did go just through the green sections, again. And I think that the planner can make the vast majority of these. It's going to take a little time, but they can be made. It's more than just typos, though. It's like fleshing out a thought in writing and citing where information came from and so forth. So to Derek's point, and I am 100% behind it, when we turn this back over to the Board of Trustees, or we present it in review to the adjacent communities or the county, or we go forward with it with the public, I want this thing 95% there, if not more. I want nobody coming back with 5-6 pages of concerns with typos. I want this thing near perfect. We've spent enough time on it, an extra couple weeks, as far as I'm concerned, to make sure this thing is.
But it's nothing that requires additional discussion by the planning commission. So we can walk out of here tonight, I can work with the
Unless the
planner.
planner says that we need to.
Okay. If everyone agrees with that, then I think we're in a good place.
Now, at some point, though, I want, whether it's me or you or whoever, I want them to take this list against the updated draft and make sure that every one of these was, the grammatical stuff was addressed, the thoughts of fleshing out an idea further, or citing where it came from, are all taken care of. Or, you decide that, no, we really don't need to make that change. Just make sure that that's noted separately in case it ever comes up. That's all.
Yeah, so to be clear, I'm asking for all of these in green to be reviewed by the planner. I'm not
Right.
saying we're not going to discuss it, but I'm empowering them as the
Absolutely,
professional,
sure.
along with Tammy, to essentially wordsmith, replace photos, and edit accordingly. None of which I felt I needed to go word for word in all of these comments to say
Especially-
exactly where the period is going to go, or exactly how the map is going to change.
That's not what we're talking about.
Right. So I'm just being clear that I expect the same, and I think we just need to state that clearly, as discussed tonight on this motion, and as outlined in these comments, that they be picked up, and therefore, at that point in time, once they're been picked up, that we forward the resolution and essentially the draft to the Board of Trustees.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right, further discussion. If not, I'll entertain a motion, either receive and file, or to postpone, or to read a resolution.
There's a request by the planner to submit a motion to the township board regarding the next step relative to the distribution of the master plan, and I would like to make the following motion with one or two additions. And that is, whereas the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, MPEA PA 33 of 2008, authorizes municipal planning commissions to prepare a master plan pursuant to the future development of the municipality. And whereas the Orion Township Planning Commission has prepared a draft master plan for the township to update and replace its previous master plan, meeting all statutory requirements set forth in the MPEA, and this is a new. And whereas the Planning Commission has received and reviewed comments from the Township Board, many of which will be incorporated in the next draft. And whereas the MPEA requires that the Planning Commission seek authorization from the Township Board for the distribution of the draft Orion Township Master Plan to the various entities listed in the MPEA for review and comment purposes. Now therefore, the Orion Township Planning Commission hereby resolves that the Planning and Zoning Director forward a formal requirement to the Township Board for staff to distribute the draft master plan, including the new future land use map, to neighboring communities and reviewing agencies as specified in the MPEA, and to make the draft available for review by the public on the township's website and via a hard copy at the Planning and Zoning Department's office.
All right, so I have a motion by Mr. Gross. Do I have a support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Bracken. Further discussion? Seeing none, any public discussion on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
St. Henry,
Yes.
Bracken,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Gingell,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you very much. All right, good discussion. Thank you for that clarification in the resolution, too. Can't say we didn't discuss this topic a lot, right? When we go to formally adopt it. If we get there. No, I'm kidding. All right, public comments. Seeing no one racing up to the podium. We do have a memo, communication from the Charter Township of Orion, or Independence, I apologize, to Orion Township. They're noticed to intend to update their master plan, so that is in our packet here tonight, and just obviously, we will be receiving a digital draft, just like we are intending to send them one. So maybe good things to thumb through and compare notes on here in the next few months. There also is an attorney letter in our packet tonight that I encourage everyone to read on their own time here, and as it relates to future projects on our docket. Item number 11, planner report and education. Do you have anything for us tonight? Okay. Committee reports, we don't have any. I don't believe we have any future public hearings scheduled at this time. I would like to have just a couple of comments. Once again, congratulations, Mrs. Gingell, on your citizen planner. I don't think people really realize the effort that does take. So thank you for doing that, and hopefully you can bring some good future insight to our commission. With that said, I'll turn it over to you for any comments here tonight.
No comments other than that's 18 hours to get that certification.
But who's counting?
What was your opinion of it?
Worth it? Not worth it?
Say what you want.
I think it was a good overview of what we do. And a first step to get your master planner, right? So
Are you going to go for it?
maybe.
You have, was it 6 months?
Was that all virtual?
It was all virtual. Yeah,
How many additional hours for master?
0. So you have to do a 20-minute capstone project and pass a test.
But I think you have 6 months, don't quote me. There is a
It sounds
time
right.
frame from when you get your citizen planner.
6 months
complete
sounds
your-
right.
It goes fast.
Got to
It
sit up
was,
here long
the
enough.
best part was meeting the other people in the class, getting to know them and getting their opinions on their townships and cities and what they're doing right now. So that was probably the best part.
Very nice. Mr. St. Henry.
No comment, other than to Ms. Gingell's point, maybe it would be nice to talk to other planning commission members about the challenges that they face in their markets and what best practices, and I imagine we share a lot of the same angst at times, but it would be interesting to hear from other folks, maybe at the planning commission or the planning conference.
I was just
Time
going to
to
say
do
that.
Yep, so I think that there's obviously not been one in a while because of COVID, and some of the virtual ones have lacked the good dialogue that I think exists, but there's is it American Planning Association?
Michigan Association
Michigan,
of
sorry.
Planning.
Michigan Association of Planning. That is obviously one opportunity for us to go have that dialogue. I've been to that conference. I've also been to some of the planning and zoning workshops that the Michigan Township Association holds, and I would strongly encourage, my personal belief is in MTA, that it kind of weaves in not only the planning, but also some of the other topics as it relates to discussions, and they tend to try and bring forth, obviously, multiple, dialogues to the conversation. I know myself and Tammy, go ahead.
Just to piggyback on that, there is an MTA conference at the end of April in Lansing in person. I'll be there on Tuesday, I believe, the 20, whatever the last Tuesday of the month is. So would be a good opportunity as well.
So that's the big picture conference. I'm attending professionally myself, so I'll bring back some of those conversations. I know Kim, as a board member, is attending. I'm just curious from both the architecture world, more specifically this year, but obviously have some of the courses that I'm looking to attend as the planning side too. So I've always appreciated that. Tammy, do you have anything else to
I
say?
just wanted to point out, I think there was one year we didn't, the first year of COVID, when things, we weren't sure where money was going. In my budget, I have for every single planning commission member to go to the MAP conference. So don't ever hesitate, that information will come out and you get the little catalog. As it gets closer, it'll come out. I believe it's Mackinac Island this year. I believe so.
You need to reserve rooms sooner?
So, well, when it comes out, I will need to know, and when I start seeing that they're opening up registration, you'll start hearing me say, I need to know, I need to know. If it is Mackinac, as I recall, there's suitable places to stay, but it's always desirable to stay where all the classes are versus a bed and breakfast somewhere else on the island, because then you do get more out of staying in the same facility. So dragging your feet isn't always good at these conferences if you want to be where everybody else is.
Yeah, the date range on that, what was in go ahead.
That is October 12th through the 14th of this year, and that is in Mackinac.
Thank you. So encourage that. Obviously, good to kind of step away and understand the different conversations that are going on. So usually worth a while. And I think, I was a little reluctant to do MTA this year, but what it was is more or less understanding what the conference was going to look like here post-pandemic. They're hosting stuff virtually and in person. So I think hopefully here on out, there's going to be a little more buzz in person with the dialogues that I think we benefit greatly from, so.
Where's the conference in Mackinac? Isn't it a Mission Point?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Further discussion? All right, closing comments, Mr. Gross.
I have nothing.
Ms. Bracken.
Nothing for me.
Tammy, anything?
Nothing.
Sure. All right, with that said, we now have 8:10. I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have support?
Support.
Is there anything else? I'm sorry, did I miss something?
waiting, that's the longest I've heard for support.
Oh, okay. Support by Mrs. Gingell, correct? Yep. All those in favor, please stay with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries.